Welcome to the Exploring Unschooling podcast. I'm Pam Laricchia, longtime unschooling mom and author. Join me and my wonderful guests for interviews, information, and inspiration about unschooling and living joyfully with your family. You can find the episode show notes, your free introductory ebook, What is Unschooling, and lots more information at livingjoyfully.ca. And here's the show. Hello, everyone. I'm Pam Laricchia, and this is episode number 74 of the podcast. It's the 31st of May, 2017, as I record this intro. And this week, I asked Robyn Coburn 10 questions about her unschooling experience. Her daughter is now 17 and has never been to school. We had a great conversation talking about deschooling fears, sleeping patterns, tips for handling meltdowns, the differing needs of kids and teens, unschooling conferences, and much more. I'm excited to dive into the questions, but first I want to say a big thank you to everyone supporting the show on Patreon. I really appreciate all of my patrons, and I love that you're helping me share unschooling information with anyone who wants to explore ways to live this wonderful lifestyle with their family. If you'd like to support the show, even for as little as $1 a month, check out the Exploring Unschooling page at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/exploring unschooling. And this week's quote is from Robyn. "It is so much easier not to be living in a state of siege and battle every day." And that pretty much sums it all up, doesn't it? Parenting is not about winning battles and subduing our children. It's about living together with them, co-conspirators as we adventure our way through our days as a family. And now, on to the interview with Robyn. Hi everyone, I'm Pam Laricchia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Robyn Coburn. Hi Robyn.
Hi, Pam.
Hello. I have known Robyn through online unschooling circles for many years now and have always really enjoyed her perspective. And I love that she's still involved online and at unschooling conferences, sharing her experience and insight. And I have 10 questions for you today, Robyn, so let's dive in. So to get us started, can you share with us a bit about you and your family and how you guys discovered unschooling?
Yes, we've been unschooling all along. Jane is now 17 and she's never been to school. When I was pregnant, my husband and I knew that we wanted to homeschool, but we didn't really know anything about unschooling. I'd read one or two things and it all sounded a little strange and scary. And then when Jane was 10 months old, and I know this because I did write it in my calendar, I actually read my first On Holt book, which was How Children Fail. And then I immediately read How Children Learn. So I was primed and ready at that point. I joined a local homeschooling group when Jane was about 18 months old, and I started participating online in different lists. There was a local list in California. There was the Homeschoolers of California organization, which is a statewide support group. And there was a very interesting woman whose writings I always responded to very positively, whose name was Pam Sarushian. And then at one point, there was some kind of little altercation or kerfuffle, and the organizers of the list told Pam that she couldn't have an advertisement in her SIG line. I think it was for a homeschooling group that she was part of. And she said, well, I'm going to leave this list, and I was very worried because I'd enjoyed what she was writing about homeschooling so much. And I said, where can I find your writing to her? And she said, well, I'm over on this unschooling group. And then that was one of the ones that Sandra Dodd was running. And I went over there, and that's when I really started learning about unschooling and was very, very, very grateful. And Pam has subsequently resolved her differences with HSC, I should just add. But that little moment was a wonderful gateway for me to find this whole other kind of writing about unschooling, and it clicked very quickly, I have to say. My husband James is a film production sound mixer, and he currently teaches production sound at the New York Film Academy here in Los Angeles. And I used to be in film and theatre, and now I'm a writer and a textile artist, and I have a business where I help people write their resumes and cover letters, primarily for working in entertainment, but also just generally. And I actually help a lot of unschoolers with their resumes, both kids and parents, and moms especially. But I would say that unschooling as a definite plan really crystallized for me when Jane was about 2.5 years old, and she'd had some swimming lessons. We had this very nice lady that came to our house, and Jane loved the water. We had a swimming pool as part of the apartment complex, and she was playing with the lady. And it didn't seem like she was learning to swim. It was all about putting her face in the water, which she did all the time anyway. And I thought, well, I don't know if she's actually getting anything out of this. And you can tell this was before I started unschooling, or I wouldn't even have started with this. And, after probably 5 or 6 lessons, it didn't look like it was doing anything, and it seemed like we were spending money unnecessarily. And I said, winter was coming too. I said, I think we'll just stop with the lessons. And then the following summer, I just played with Jane in the pool, and she learned how to swim all by herself with just playing. And over the course of the whole summer. And then somebody said to her, "Oh, you're such a good swimmer." And she said, "Yes, my swimming teacher taught me." And my jaw hit the floor. It's like, what? And I said to her, "No, she didn't. Where did you get that from?" "No, you did this yourself." So that, to me, just crystallized the danger of having a teacher, that not only will a teacher take credit for your learning, you might give the teacher credit for your learning. And it just struck me that maybe this was something that Jane was susceptible to. And so at that point, I really became determined to unschool in a way that I perhaps hadn't been quite as determined before. And I called myself an unschooler from a very early age. I mean, Jane's early age, because I was in a homeschooling group where there was an awful lot of early academics, and people were finding curriculum at 3 and 4 years old. So in defense, I started saying, even before Jane was school age, that we were unschooling. I know that's a kind of a thing, that you can't be officially unschooling until your child is school age. But in our case, there was a genuine reason for adopting the title a little sooner.
Yeah, I mean, the push for academics is getting earlier and earlier, isn't it?
Yes, in defiance of all studies and science.
I know. It's really interesting to watch that interplay between, the information and studies and what they're telling us, and yet what we're still feeling pulled on a societal level to implement, right?
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Well, I like that unschooling and homeschooling in a way isolated me a lot from those influences, because even though there was some of that in the homeschooling group, all I had to do was say unschooler, and nobody hassled me about it anymore. Whereas I feel like if I was in a more conventional parenting, the parents at my homeschooling group were very gentle. There was a lot of mindful parenting. There wasn't punishment and spanking. There wasn't that kind of bossiness going on all the time at the park days. It was set up as a free play park day group, not a having lessons co-op type group. So it was really nice, and I found some wonderful friends there whose parenting, even though their education plan was different, their parenting was very similar in philosophy. So that was really nice. And the only time I ever came across conventional parenting really was when I made the mistake of going to the park on a weekend, and people who work all week are there with their kids, and it was just like, oh my goodness.
That was
listening to moms in a group complaining about their husbands all day long,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm not part of. I don't know you. I don't want to. Goodbye. So, anyway.
Well, yeah, that was something I found, when we began unschooling, because I didn't find it until my kids were in school, that I really did feel drawn to move away from those communities and relationships, right? And to find new ones that were unschooling focused, because, I wanted unschooling answers to my questions and concerns, and to learn more about that rather than getting the conventional ones, because those were the ones that weren't working for me anyway. But if I hadn't, switched that up, I was surrounded by all that conventional perspective and answers, and I wasn't getting the information that I was looking for. So I really did find an actual movement away from those kinds of communities into ones that I felt more comfortable with now.
Well, I would encourage a new unschooler to look for a different community and to take a break from being around people that are going to cause you to question. It's like when you go into recovery, one of the first things they say is don't keep going and hanging out with your old drinking buddies at the bar, because you will end up having a drink. A little bit of that. And even if it's just online, you can find people too. I mean, you may not have any local unschoolers or homeschoolers, depending on where you live, but you can always find schooling online. So.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I found. You mentioned Jane, and I would love to hear a little bit more about what she's up to right now, like the kinds of thing that she's interested in and how she's pursuing it.
Oh, she's so fabulous.
Yeah, always.
Well, her latest thing is, of course, she's extremely excited about speaking at the conference for the first time.
Oh, awesome.
So she went ahead and joined a local homeschooling speakers league. It's kind of like, I think, Toastmasters, but for kids.
Oh, wow.
She's been a few times with one of her friends who's been, the whole family had been members for a long time, and she said to me, I'd like to join the Speakers League. And I said, great, let's do that. So she goes twice a month, except they're about to break for summer. Mm-hmm. They do break over the summer. So that's what she's doing now. She used to go to a dance class once a week, and then the teacher retired. So now she's doing this instead, and it's really nice. Her activities, she spends a lot of time doing video gaming, electronic gaming. She plays World of Warcraft, which is on her computer. She plays Overwatch, which is on the Xbox, and she plays Persona 5, which is on the other system that's in her bedroom. So she's got the systems, but with the World of Warcraft, she has friends that play it, and they sometimes meet up inside the computer, or she'll be on Skype with a friend, and they're both playing but separately, and she does that a lot. So WoW has been a social kind of gaming experience, whereas Overwatch and Persona 5 are separate. But she multitasks like crazy. She'll be playing a game, and she'll still be talking to her friend on Skype, or she'll be texting back and forth, and they'll be having text conversations or group chats while she does that. And it beats me. I can't do two things at once anymore. I've gotten too old. The other things she loves is Harry Potter. She loves the books and the movies, and she loves The Walking Dead. And she and I watch The Walking Dead together and talk about it and just laugh. It's hilarious. I mean, it's very silly, and that's a great effect. Look how they did that makeup, that sort of thing. And she's very interested in makeup and skincare. She has a lot of friends who are interested in makeup. One of her friends is a lass called Void Noir. That's her name, Void, and she does makeup as art, like her face is her canvas. She does this incredible thing. She has a couple of other friends who are interested in glamour makeup. They get together and talk about that all the time, and she knows everything. Like, if you ask her about some obscure product, she can tell you the whole history. And let's see, what else? She's very interested in how language is used. She'll say to me, "Oh, Mom, you shouldn't say that word. That's not correct to use that phrase because it means thus and such and such and such and offends some particular." But she knows all of that, those kinds of things that creeps out. And she's recently started learning the ukulele, which seems to be something that a lot of her friends do too. So she thought I better learn ukulele so we can all play together. that's that. And she's great. She's just very awesome. And our life has been much improved since we moved from our one-bedroom apartment into this house. We finally have a house, thanks to the death of my mother-in-law. She left us enough money to buy a house. So Jane's a lot happier now that she has her own really private space instead of a kind of cobbled together thing that we live with. We've been here for, I think we're going into our 4th year. So it really improved our happiness. And the other thing that improved our happiness is that we just got a cat. So we've had our first pet last Thanksgiving, cat from the shelter. And she's just the most adorable thing. And if we're ever running out of conversation between us, we can just talk about how nice the cat is. It's great. Exhaustible source of conversation and communion about the cat. Jane had always been nervous to get a cat. Plus, they didn't allow pets. So now we finally got a cat, and it's just... Jane says that petting the cat decreases her anxiety. If she ever has any anxiety, she will attend to the cat for a little while, and then she feels relaxed again. So that's very interesting and neat.
Yeah, no.
And she just became a vegetarian.
Did she?
Just decided that she still eats fish because she won't give up sushi. She doesn't want to give up sushi. But she's so excited and pleased to be a vegetarian because she feels like she never really did like beef, and she coped with my bad cooking of chicken. So now she's really happy.
I love hearing all the different things, as you're coming, this. It's so fun to see all these threads as they weave together for our kids, isn't it? Because, you can see how kind of, the makeup and the Walking Dead kind of go together. I can even see for us here, Harry Potter and language became a thing, and language into speaking. Persona, the series, is pretty popular over here too, and it's just so cool to see how things weave and appear, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I love
it. There was, for a very long time, she wasn't interested in Harry Potter, even though I'd read the books to her, and it just didn't really click. And then suddenly, a couple of years ago, it just clicked as became a much bigger interest than it had been before. And she'll listen to the soundtracks, and we'll watch the movies together with the book open, and we'll pause the movies and have a discussion about a scene in the book and how it's different. It's just the level of detail that Jane goes into now with her interest is huge. I mean, she used to be interested in other things and explore them in enormous detail, but it's just fun. And I also love that she really wants me to share in her interest.
Yeah.
She really wants me to watch things with her, and she'll still want me to watch her playing a game sometimes, which sometimes it's a bit of a struggle because some of them, the games are sometimes more interesting to play than to watch. But I watch them anyway, and I'll ask her questions. And it's cool. And she has goals that she wants to get a certain number of coins so that she can buy a particular skin for a character in Overwatch. That she has to play this many games or this many hours or whatever it is. It's fun.
It's so nice when they invite you into their world, isn't it? And that's something I always am careful to make time for. Like last night I was walking by Joseph's room and he called me in, and I ended up there for 10 minutes while he showed me a couple of different videos that he'd come across that he thought I might like. But that's how you keep the connection strong, isn't it?
Yes, Jane likes to process her thoughts, and not just her feelings, but also like her plans for the day. She likes to process it verbally. So it really helps her to have someone just listen to her talking about the minutiae of what she's going to be doing the order of things, or whether she's going to do this task before that or the other way around. And it's not asking for advice. It's just literally being the listening ear. So I'm happy to be there for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so, she'll be laughing. I'll hear her laughing, and I'll say what's funny, and she'll tell me what she's been watching something online or a funny video, and then we'll laugh together, and it's nice. There's never any secrecy. Poor thing.
Yeah,
she can't keep anything confidential. But I mean, she doesn't seem to want to. She doesn't have the desire to.
Yeah.
To separate her life from our life.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, she's not worried about being judged. She's happy to share. That's awesome.
No.
So I figure we better move on to the next question. When you were in the thick of deschooling, what was the biggest fear that was tripping you up, and how did you work through it?
Well, now you sent me this question, and I was looking at this one, and I thought, well, this is actually the tough question, because I really can't remember any fears.
Awesome.
Now, obviously, Jane didn't need to de-school because she didn't go to school other than that one abortive swimming teacher.
Yeah.
It's all sort of myself that is doing the deschooling. As someone who had a very successful school experience and a less successful home life, I really enjoyed school and going to school, and received a lot of kudos for being a good student. But I don't remember having fears about it. My fears were more, I was unschooling, having read John Holt, I was unschooling because I was afraid of what the public school system and schooling in general would do to Jane, that it might take away from her essence. This is the kinds of stories I was hearing. And whether that would have happened or not, I don't know, but I was more afraid that school would harm her than that unschooling would hurt her at all. So I don't know. I suppose there was, in a sense, there's the same fears that every parent has of, some maniac stealing your kid. I've noticed that whenever there's one of those, a child was kidnapped, it was always they were walking home alone from school. But well, there's another reason not to go to school. Always, this is when they get, and there's always also babies wandered out of the house because mom was taking a nap, and it's always mom was taking a nap, and the kid. So I never took naps. That's one thing. I feel like I didn't have a lot of fears because I immediately I took that kind of action to address it.
Yeah.
Such as not a nap or, the only time I remember being genuinely scared was when Jane got lost at Disneyland for about 10 minutes. And when she was very little. And that was fear, but that's not anything to do with unschooling.
Yeah.
Those things are the things that happen to every parent and in every situation. I never really felt any kind of fear about how would she learn something, because there was so much information available to me already and so much discussion, and other people had already asked that question. There was no question I could come up with that someone hadn't already asked or asked over and over again. So I don't have very good answers.
Actually, I think that's really helpful, though, because, from what you're saying, there was always answers to your questions, but you were pursuing that information, right? And actively continuing to learn, so that you kind of had those answers in your pocket when you wondered about something. So I think that's a really important part of deschooling. You can intellectually understand, oh yeah, they can learn outside school, and you can, not send them to school or take them out, and kind of sit there and enjoy your days and stuff. But I think it's more likely that fears are going to come up, and it's more easy to get stuck in them if you haven't done a lot of learning and processing on how it works, philosophically, to understand what you're seeing in front of you, so that your kid's playing games for days, how with fear you can really generalize stuff. Oh, they just play all day, or whatever your particular, they aren't reading yet and they're 9, whatever it is. If you haven't dug deeper into how learning really works with unschooling, those kind of fears can come up for you. So as you said, you were learning, you were reading those books, you were in the online communities and participating, so you were seeing those questions come up even for other people. So you kind of inoculated yourself with knowing, with being able to recognize things that you saw. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. And I have to say that one of the big things was that Jane was 3 when we went to our first conference.
Mm-hmm.
And the conferences, they were so very reassuring on every issue, because you see kids who are just a little older than your child, and then older still, and you see the preteens and the teenagers and the young adults, and they're all there in front of you, and you can see this continuum. There's our future.
Mm-hmm.
This is all we have to do is keep unschooling, and it will move through largely in this way, which is that. In a sense, it was a little, I was also, even then, I was a little naive, because there is stuff that happens still, even in unschooling. It's not a guarantee that your child will never have any kind of problem or emotional issue or an eating disorder or develop some kind of, medical issue, whatever it might be. Unschooling doesn't create a guarantee, and there may be a point where your kid doesn't ever learn some specific thing. Or does turn out to have challenges learning whatever it might be. Like, Jane has now twice taken a chess bee. She still hasn't managed to pass the math portion, but she gets better and better every time. And it beats me, because she knows how to do it at home. When she does tests at home and the practice, she doesn't get any of them wrong. And then when she did the actual test, she did get enough wrong to not quite pass. So we were like scratching our heads and going, yeah, let's not bother anymore. It costs too much to do it every time.
Yeah.
Well, the only purpose of doing it was for the sake of not having to get a work permit before the age of 18.
Ah.
So she's almost 18 now, so we're like, why bother?
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's another great point.
Language arts, flying very early. It's pretty good for someone who's started learning about math, the theory of it, the nomenclature, the proper the formula and stuff, as against generalized arithmetic. About 3 weeks before she took the test. But her whole approach to taking a test was like just very pragmatic. There was no sense of it being bound up with her self-worth, or there's any kind of external thing. It was very much for a pragmatic purpose that didn't work out, and she's just sort of shrugging her shoulders and saying, oh well, it hasn't affected her own belief in herself, or her own belief in her intelligence. And she's like, hey, I can carry a calculator. I've got a calculator on my phone. This is really very unnecessary, and I do know how to do it when it's for a real practical reason. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't think that I get impatient now when I see some of the questions come up that are so silly. It's like, don't be stupid. It's a stupid fear, which isn't very nice. I don't say it. I think it. I don't say it to poor people who are in the group of. It's like, oh, what if my child never? Like, that's just stupid. It is. It is. Your child will, or they won't, but they'll still be happy.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Right? Because, there's never only one path to something. right?
Well, exactly, and if the whole point of unschooling is to not do school, the school is still there. If you really are that worried by the time your child is 15 that they aren't going to. The funniest one I heard was, "What if they never learn history?" But what? You're worried about history of all subjects? You're worried about history. What if they never learn history? Well, there's a really good TV channel, A&E. Put that on for a little while. The school is always still there. They can always do that. But I hope that you won't make them go if they don't want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Jane had never any desire whatsoever. There was the fear. There, we found one. My fear was that she would want to go to school. Mm. That was my own. Found a fear. And in my mind, I would have felt like that I hadn't been giving her enough if she'd wanted to go to the school. My question whenever someone does say that their child wants to go to school is, well, why do they want to do that? And it's always been a little baffling why someone would want to give up the opportunity to spend their days doing just exactly what they like in order to go somewhere where they have to get told where to go and what to do by the sound of a bell. But some people have their own reasons for going to school, and if it works for them, great. But that was my fear, was she would want to go to school, and she never did. It was like, you won't be able to spend all day playing video games if you go to school. Right, I don't want to go. It was very, very an easy fear to deal with. It never came up.
I recall many years ago, too, conversations online about sleeping patterns. And I definitely felt a virtual connection with you because Jane's sleeping patterns seemed similar to Joseph's. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how you approached that.
Well, I sure wish I'd known that there were other people out there. I think I've managed to track down about 2 other people who are like Jane, or at least as far as of a few years ago. I only knew 2 other kids who were anywhere near like Jane. And I will say, first of all, that the way we handled it was only possible because Jane is an only child. If there had been siblings, it would have been much more difficult to handle, to live this way. But Jane, from a very early age, I guess I want to say probably from 3 or 4, that was when I started quantifying it. Jane lives on a longer day than regular people. Her day is about 26 hours rather than 24. So she would sleep for 12. No, she'd sleep for 10. Sometimes she'd sleep for 12. She'd sleep for 10, and then she'd be up for 16. And if she had a nap, she'd sleep for 5, and then she'd be up, and then she'd sleep for another 5 later. But whatever it was, we were on a march around the clock. It was longer than a 24-hour day. Mm-hmm. And the only reset we had was her dance class every week. And sometimes we couldn't even get up to go to it. So I followed Jane on her schedule around the clock, and for a third of the time, at least a third of the time, that meant that she was awake all night. We'd get up at 6 and then 7 and 8, and we'd be up all night long, and we'd go to sleep. And the only way to have a peaceful life was for me to follow her, because she was too little to be left alone. She couldn't do anything for herself, like make food or anything like that. And she was lonely, and if she was left alone. So I followed her, and all of the advice that works for many children to help them go to sleep, or to go to sleep when they're tired, or even make warm baths and dark rooms, make a nest. None of that worked. She wouldn't go to sleep if she wasn't ready to sleep, and nor would she wake up. You could hang her upside down by her ankles and she's still tired. She just was just a very good sleeper. And she was actually a long sleeper. She was sleeping for 4-hour stretches almost immediately at the hospital. Which they actually call sleeping through the night sleeping for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. They say that, which is most of us, when we think sleep through the night, we're thinking 8 hours. But no, with babies, they sleep between 4 and 6 hours at a stretch. That's called through the night. So she was doing that from the beginning. And it was really very tiring, but also very interesting. And the person who missed out was my husband, because he stayed on a regular daytime schedule. But sometimes late at night, and it was just her and I, we spent a lot of time being very close, doing things together, and going. And we go out. Sometimes we drive. We live near the airport here, and there are these light tubes that change colour, and they go all night long. They change colour, and we would go and drive like a figure eight around these tubes, and it was very fun. And we would go places that were open late. Like we'd go to IKEA, and she'd play at IKEA, and IKEA would close at 9 or 10. And we'd go to the supermarket in the middle of the night because it was open 24 hours and that sort of thing. And then there was times when it was frustrating because there wasn't anywhere different or interesting to go. And then when we were awake during the day, it's day part of our schedule. We'd go out to the park days and things. And we had a bunch of friends who were homeschooling who, I guess they scratched their heads, but they accepted it. They accepted our weird schedule, so they'd be like, in fact they still do. What's Jane's schedule like at the moment? So can we come see you, or is she sleeping during the day? And so basically I stayed with her until somewhere around about 10 years old. 10 years old to 11 years old. I started, maybe it was 9 actually, because I started working outside of the home part-time for a bit, and I started saying, you know what, I can't keep staying up all night, but she was okay with it. So at first we transitioned out of me just being awake on her schedule to me being laying down on the sofa and taking a nap, sleeping while she was awake. And I would do things like make up the picnic basket which we took to park day, and then I'd make it up and have it at home, so that it was sort of food for her to have during the evening, during the night, or whenever, even sometimes during the day when I was trying to nap. And then I would get to a point where I slowly went back onto a more regular schedule. I'm still something of a night owl, but I'd be going to bed at like 1 o'clock. I'd say to her, I don't have anything else, I'm going to bed. And she'd say, okay, see you in the morning, and that sort of thing. And now she has her own schedule, and when she knows she has something coming up, she manages to arrange her sleeping somehow. She makes herself stay up. She pushes through a little bit so that she goes to bed later. And it's weird. It's like her whole schedule has accelerated. Instead of being a very slow march, 1 hour a day, we would go to sleep an hour or 2 hours later every day. Now she'll be able to flip herself around over the course of 3 or 4 days. But the great thing is that I can just do me. I don't have to worry about her sleep at all. I don't have to stay up with her. What I do now for her food is, I know she's going to be getting up at 2 or 3 in the morning, or 1 o'clock in the morning. That's when her wake time is going to be. I make her a little crock pot early in the evening and leave it for her, and she has her crock pot when she gets up. And that's the easiest thing. Mm-hmm. So it's the fears that she would never be able to get up and go somewhere if she was allowed to have her own sleep schedule have not come to pass. And every now and then she's sort of like, I wish I had this strange sleep schedule. But it's still up to her to find a way to solve that. I can't tell how tired she is. Sometimes she's like, I'm too tired. I know I'm supposed to stay up, but I'm going to go to bed. And what are you supposed to stay up for? Oh, just my schedule. But it was very valuable to me to do that with her, because we got to spend so much time together, and we still managed to have our own tension between us too. which whereas Jane sometimes, if she's frustrated about something, she lashes out at the nearest object with her frustration, but the big thing is don't take it personally. But it was much more peaceful when I was just acceptant that this was our life. And I didn't try to fight against it or say, oh, I wish we didn't sleep this way. When I was accepted and embraced it, and just went with the flow of that, I would, a lot of the time I'd be tired, but I didn't have to be cranky as well as tired. I could just be tired. And still. So I got used to finding stillness inside me, just being calm and taking deep breaths. And knowing this too shall pass. And the truth is that now, 17, so I guess it's got to be 7 years since I've done the all-night with Jane thing, at least. 7 years anyway. It's, I don't feel like, I don't regret it, and we all sleep normally. I mean, I sleep normally, James sleeps normally. We didn't permanently affect our ability to go to sleep at night or anything like that, which, some people do have disordered sleep. And I've subsequently read fairly recently that sleeping that way, sleeping during the day, is actually classified as a sleep disorder. I'm like, what? No, this is what's normal for her. It's normal for her because any strategy to try and change it didn't work and made everybody unhappy and added stress to everybody's life. The only thing that made our life peaceful and calm and pleasant was accepting that this was normal for Jane. And knowing that I had the ability, I don't think I could do it now. I'm too old now. I feel like if I tried, I really would be exhausted. But then I had the energy and the strength, and I did it. I just stayed up with it. And then I have a good story to tell unschooling parents who are worried that their child won't go to bed on the dot of 8 o'clock. Oh yeah? Try this. So that's the other thing. I've been able to add something to the whole story of sleeping with unschooling.
Well, and it's just so helpful for them to, get to know their own bodies and understand, like to even be able to recognize this longer day that is natural for them. Like for us, I realized when I looked back, so Joseph was almost 10. So he was 9, turning 10 in a couple weeks when they left school and we started unschooling. And I realized looking back how much time I did spend helping him get to sleep and helping him get up in the morning to fit in with the school schedule. That took a lot of time and effort. And then once we were no longer doing that, so he was 10, so he was okay with staying up on his own. And again, we noticed it was just a creep, of maybe a half an hour or two, usually an hour. So I would guess probably 25-hour day sort of deal. But he would completely go around the clock with it in quite a recognizable pattern. And for years. And he has learned that about himself, and exactly the same as you were mentioning with Jane, that, if something's coming up that they want to do, they know themselves and their sleeping patterns so much that they know ways to shift, and they know when things are difficult and it's not worth it, to say, you know what, I'm too tired. I'm just going to keep sleeping, or I'm going to go to bed instead, It's just so important. I just think it's really valuable to know that they understand themselves and to be able to work with that rather than, being told that that's wrong or having to fight against it every day. Like, can you imagine having spent a good chunk of your childhood just fighting your own body's sleeping patterns? So yeah, it's different, but it's so important.
I can't imagine the kind of exhaustion that conventional parents have who have a job that they're fighting against their schedule every day, just forever. That is, people say, oh, homeschooling must be so hard. It's like not as hard as going to school and doing all that stuff. Not as hard as all of the trappings that go with schooling, let alone the unschooling parenting aspect, or how difficult it is to constantly be battling your children. It's so much easier not to be living in a state of siege and battle every day. To be.
Yep. You alluded to this a little bit in the last question, but I came across a great response that you gave to a mom asking about things to do during a meltdown when your child's very upset. So I was hoping you could share some of your insights and tips.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate you liking that piece. I went back and read it again. It was just something written on a list in response to a parent's question, and Sandra grabbed it and keeps it on her website. And sometimes I look at my old writing and go, wow, gee, I was so erudite. What happened? That was a nice piece. But the main thing about that is, what I remember is Ren Allen's remarks that she once wrote, that when her child is having a kind of meltdown or problem or upset, that is a cue to herself to become her best self. And that's what inspired what I was writing. There's nothing I write that isn't inspired by something brilliant someone else has said. I think that the first thing I would say is it's right in there in that the kind of the title there is to call it a meltdown, not a tantrum. That's the first thing. Change how you describe what's happening with your child, instead of saying it's a tantrum, which has all kinds of baggage about that it's unworthy of being attended to, that it's something silly, that the child is doing something that's inconvenient. And if you reframe how you describe it as a meltdown or as your child having some kind of problem, it's a lot easier to switch on your compassion and help your child, instead of the conventional wisdom, some word. The conventional advice is, if they're having a tantrum, you should ignore it, or they'll always use a tantrum to get what they want. Yeah. Well, you know what? As soon as you take that whole idea out of your vocabulary, you could start thinking, oh, my child has a problem and she needs some help. And then next time she'll know what to do when she has the same problem. That's a better philosophy. It's a kinder approach, and it's the approach that always worked for me. The other thing, the tip I have is what I used to do. I would print out things that people said, good advice, things like what Ren said, other little tips, and I would print them out and post them around my workstation, or where I could see them in my computer, where I'd see them a lot. And sometimes I printed out things I said myself. Well, that's good. I better remember that. Yeah. And I would see it, and it would be under my eye all day, and my eye would be caught by these little different sayings. And Sandra has her little fridge magnets that she has, and that sort of thing. And so I was surrounded by good advice and good voices, even when I wasn't online. So every now and then, I could stop and take a deep breath. There's another good tip, is always stop and take a deep breath or two first. And then I'd see one of these little sayings, and I remember that there was some better way than the knee-jerk feeling I was having that was just a carryover from my own childhood, something like that. And the other thing, something I've said a lot, is that the answer to most problems is in a box marked more attention. That's the thing. It's always more attention, always helps. And then the other thing is, I think the very first thing I said in that piece of writing is to avoid the known situations. So that's something. If you know that your kid is always going to have a problem when they go somewhere loud and dark, don't go somewhere loud and dark. Jane did not like large crowds. She didn't like dark, noisy places. She didn't like places like Chuck E. Cheese, that kind of thing. And it was worse if it was a dark restaurant that played loud music. She's never going to be a rave attender. She's never going to go to clubs because she's still the same. Dark, noisy, crowded. And some kids are affected by the fluorescent lighting in stores. So she's like, what's going on? There's nothing going on, but yeah, you know what? Your kid doesn't like the flickering lights here. There's that. And another phrase that I liked, that I wrote, I guess I kind of wrote it by accident, but it was the phrase helping Jane become emotionally organized. And that, when I was reading that over just in preparation for this interview, that phrase really struck me. Emotionally organized. And that's what it is. It's futile to try and speak to your child logically and give them a lecture about their behavior when they're emotionally disorganized, because their emotional state is always going to trump their logic. And it's not just children. I think that's everybody. I mean, look at Donald Trump. He responds in an emotional manner to any kind of criticism, that even adults, even elderly adults, their emotions trump their logic a lot of the time. So you can't try and give your child better skills in the moment while they're emotionally disorganized or they're having an emotional moment. You have to wait until they're calm and rational again to try and give them some ideas for next time. So don't try and stop it right then. Ride the wave. You just have to ride the wave and be acceptant and try and be a buffer, which a lot of people see. Just walk away and leave them laying in the floor. No, I'll pick them up and give them a cuddle. That's the thing. And today, these days now, when Jane is 17, I find that just being very silent, finding that same stillness that I had when she was young and I was tired and didn't want to be cranky. I just find the same stillness, be very silent, and just let her speak, let her rant. And sometimes I snap back at that. She's angry about something. I'm still not as good at not taking things personally as I would want to be. There's always still the goals to reach of always being calm, always being as patient as I want to be. I don't know if I'll ever be as patient as I want to be, but I'm still going to keep trying, because being silent, I know that works the best. There's this wonderful word, akrasia, A-K-R-A-S-I-A. It means deciding on the best course of action and then doing something else, doing some other thing. And I feel like I have that in me a lot, because I know it's best if I'm very quiet and better keep talking. Don't try and offer a solution, and don't try and say, I don't like your tone of voice, or any of those things. Just be silent, and it ends. And then 10 minutes later, she'll come out and say, Mom, I'm sorry, I snapped at you. That's the right course of action, but still I sometimes do something else. But, I guess life would be dull if we didn't have challenges.
Well, we're definitely always learning, aren't we? But, yeah, and it's not useful to hold up perfection, right? Each moment is each moment, and we do the best that we can, as much as we remember those tools. And I think what's helped me most, because it's finding out what works best for my child in those moments. Like you were saying, that the silence and letting them have that space to vent, to
but
help
not
them release.
ignoring.
Yes,
Listening to
exactly.
them, not letting them have the space, as in leaving the space, still being present.
Yep, that's a great point. That connection piece, it's still there, right? That they know someone's listening. Yeah. Right? And understanding their turmoil or whatever it is that they're going through.
Well, even if I don't understand it, I can understand that she's having something.
Yes, exactly. You don't have to understand the issue itself, but understanding for them as a person. And I mean, it's not hard to remember those moments when we're bubbling over with frustration about something. It's not the something, because we can always so quickly want to jump and fix that something, right? But that's not where they are in that moment, right? And the same when we're upset and we're venting or bubbling over to someone, we're not looking for them to give us a solution in that moment. I mean, eventually we want to process and get to that point, but in those moments, I love that emotional disorganization, that phrase that you're talking about. That's not the time for it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But one of the things I used to have, the little sign that I used to have up, something that I wrote down was, what loving action can I take right now? So it reminded me to see if my action was going to be loving or was it going to be angry or punitive.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I mean, I didn't punish, but that didn't mean that sometimes Jane, in the absence of punishment, Jane saw my stern voice as punishment.
Yeah.
Feel as badly as if I had punished her in some way, which I never did. So,
mm-hmm.
What loving action can I take right now? Fine.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. Yeah, a great perspective to bring to it, right?
Well, it worked for me. It worked for Jane, I think.
Mm-hmm. So we should move on to question 6 here. And it's another question that I see pretty regularly out and about, and it's the idea of, can unschooling spoil a child? Because especially when someone's new and they're first looking in, it might look like the kinds of actions that we're talking about would end up spoiling a child, but in reality, it's really different, isn't it?
Well, I think it's different. I don't think that Jane is spoiled, but I also think that this is one of those occasions that it's something Sandra has talked about a lot, where people are using phrases that are not their own. It's not something they've come up with. It's something they've heard or has been repeated to them when they were children or whatever it is. It's not original thinking. It's parroting a phrase that children can get spoiled. So the first thing is to say, again, look at the language and words that we use to describe our children, because that matters a lot. Our own actions and our children, the words we use change the way we think about it. It's interesting. I actually have not seen that question very much in the things that I've been reading, the list that I'm on. At least not recently, but I'm not on anywhere near as many lists as I used to be, I have to say. I participate in just a couple these days rather than the plethora that I used to be part of. But I guess if spoiling, I guess it comes from the idea that a child is spoiled if they get everything they want. So they start feeling like they're entitled to everything, and there's a whole discussion of what a child is entitled to, which maybe a child is entitled to everything that you can possibly give them as their parent who loves them. That's a whole other discussion. But is a child spoiled when they get angry when they don't get what they want and start demanding things? And is it that they're angry and demanding, or is it that they're actually just disappointed and don't know how to express their disappointment? I sometimes I think, well, if you're asking about spoiling a child, are you jealous of happy children? Is that what it is? I don't know what people are visualizing when they think a child is spoiled. Is it a fear some kind of fear operating inside them that they won't be able to give their child everything they would want to. That might be where it's coming from. If someone is asking that question, I wanted to say, well, no, they aren't spoiled. I don't think that it's spoiled, but also what do you mean by that? What do you mean by spoiled? What are you envisioning when you're thinking of the spoiled child? Because there's a lot in kind of popular culture about spoiled children. The idea of these rich children, so rich kids who have everything, and like the 16 Candles and those sort of teen movies where there's always the rich kid is always the horrible one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
It's a cultural trope that I'm not sure if it's real, and I don't know if people have they been trained by pop culture and conventional parenting to resent children who have been given love and stuff offered freely and all this. I don't know. I'm not even sure that are children really spoiled.
I think they're coming at it.
By lot.
Yeah. I think they're coming at, my impression anyway, from the conversation surrounding the questions are often that it's the idea that kids will start to feel entitled to and entitled for other people to do things for them, and expectations, that if you say yes more and you get them what they're interested in, they're going to come to expect you to always do that for them, or they'll feel entitled for that and start demanding it from other people. And I mean, from my perspective, it's just that the whole entire motivation for giving our children things and letting them do, what they want. If our child wants to go to the park and we can get them to the park, we want that to help them and for them to do things as often as possible, right? That's that whole, of course we're going to say yes more because those are life experiences and those are ways that they're pursuing what's fun and interesting and joyful for them. But it's just so different because I don't see that expectation developing because we have such a different motivation when we say we're not saying yes because we want them to stop asking us the damn question. Right. So the questions aren't that's the difference. The questions aren't controlling, aren't manipulative. There you go. I think that's the word I was looking for.
And I think that if you could also choose not to use the word manipulative about your child ever, and then if you choose not to use that word, you have to then search around for other words. You might find that manipulative never applied anyway. But my reality, the reality of unschooling that I see, is that the vast majority of the unschooled kids, as they grow up and become young adults and teenagers, and even tweens, is that they are extremely generous. Mm-hmm. So they're the opposite of, if spoiled is self-centered, selfish children that demand stuff, they're the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And that's isn't it how they're going to end up? That is what matters. I mean, there might be a little period where they want a lot of stuff, but I think that is almost a developmental stage. Children aren't naturally minimalist, I don't think. There's a point in development where being surrounded by things that are theirs gives them a sense of abundance, and then gradually it tapers off kind of naturally. It's like Jane always wanted more ice cream in her bowl than she could possibly eat, but it really pleased her to have that much, even though there was still half a bowl full when she was finished. Mm-hmm. I ended up eating leftover ice cream, and that's the thing. I could plan for it. I didn't have to serve myself all. Yeah. But that's you can plan things if you're concerned about waste. But this I started thinking a little bit when I was thinking of this question over. I was thinking that idea of love languages. That children have different love languages. Everybody has love languages supposedly, and I don't think it's as necessarily as cut and dried and delineated as some of the early literature on love languages, that book, suggests. That maybe seems like sometimes it's the love language that's missing is the one that people might crave. Maybe that's a kind of a theory I have. But the other thing is that I know that one of Jane's primary ones is gifts and objects, being given stuff. Mm-hmm. And it all comes back to accepting who she is. It's not her only love language, but it's definitely something that she responds to enormously, being given something, a tangible object. And it really makes her just be very happy, even if it's something small. So I didn't create that in her. It's something that in her as nature intended. Mm-hmm. And it's, when you think of the love languages, the idea some are more approved than others, the idea that this acquisitive object thing is a person's primary love language is somehow less acceptable than if their love language is spending time or acts of service or whatever the rest of my title. I think there are 5 originally. I don't know if they got extended, but it's the thing is, it's not. It doesn't mean that that's all she wants. I remember when she was very little. I remember taking her to the Disney store at a mall, and they just started. Hard to imagine that this was a new thing once. They just started coming out with those fashion doll-sized 11-inch princess dolls. Mm-hmm. And before that, they didn't have those. Amazing. Now they're everywhere. But she saw them and she was so excited. She just threw her arms in the air. And they were something ridiculous, like $10. They were so inexpensive. And they were beautiful. And there was only the first 3 or 4, I think. Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and I think that's all there was. And then Ariel came along a little later, the mermaid, and she rushed over and she was so excited. And I said, "Well, do you want one? I'll get you one," because she was so happy. And she's a dog collector, and so she said she'd have Snow White. And I said, "Well, would you like to get, because they were so inexpensive?" I said, "Would you like to get Cinderella as well?" And she said, "No, I'll just have one." So, right there, she's being offered a second doll, and she didn't want it that day. We got it eventually. I mean, now we've got a collection.
Yeah.
But it was. I know I say inexpensive, $10. I know to some people that would actually be a challenging amount of money to come up with for a doll. But the other thing is to reframe in your mind what they want away from being trivia, and remember that we're unschooling, which means that everything is educational, and this is what we're buying instead of textbooks. So that's the other thing. It seems like a lot, but it's not in addition to all these other things that are related to school. It's instead of that stuff, lab equipment and textbooks and things that you have to participate in through school supplies. So, anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah.
She's never not been generous. And, but it's how children behave when you aren't there to watch them that's sometimes spoken of as a guide to who they really are. If you don't have to, if they still behave well, even though you aren't there to monitor their behavior, then that's a good sign that they're behaving well from their heart, naturally.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Question number 7. I find it interesting how our children's needs change between the child and the teen years. And I found that it's not so much that they need us less, but they do need us differently. So I was wondering if you could speak to your experience.
I'm so glad you asked this question. Something that I've really noticed recently, just a couple of weeks ago, Jane, in a kind of a joking manner, said to me, I don't know why, she said, I can't remember the context of how we got to this point, but she said, "Oh, Mum, I'm just 4 years old." And it just struck me. It's so true. What I've come to the conclusion in my thinking recently, because this is going to be part of one of my presentations, so I've been writing a lot about this recently, is that the temperament doesn't actually change. If a child has a temperament, when a certain type of temperament when they're little, they're going to keep that. It's just maybe manifests itself in different ways with maturity. When Jane was very young, it was really easy to meet her needs because they were all such simple, easy needs. Mm-hmm. And now that she's at this point of being a teenager, she's older, she can do a lot more for herself in a practical point of view. She does all her own laundry. She doesn't like getting her own food, but she will if she has to. That sort of thing. There's a sort of period in between where they're not necessarily as able to do certain things. They still rely on you. Like, she's 17. If she's not driving, but she could be. She could take care of getting herself to places. So there's a point where they're beyond those simple, easy, oh, look, here's a shiny object to distraction aspect to where they really do need a lot of inventive thinking from parents to help them to meet their needs. But she still has the same emotional challenges, the emotional temperament aspect. She still doesn't like large crowded places. She still needs to verbalize when she's frustrated. She still sort of takes it out on me a little bit because I'm a safe person there when something stressful and frustration is happening that is outside of her control and outside of my control, outside of everybody's control. But she's able to calm herself a lot quicker. She realizes what's happening. Kind of says, it's not you, it's this happening. Whereas when she was little, it would still be me. The sun isn't shining, it's still my fault when she was tiny, that kind of thing. But she's very much more self-aware. That's the change. She hasn't changed who she is, but she's very much more aware of who she is as an older child. So that makes it easier. But I'm a little bit surprised at how much of my time she would still like. She'd still like even more of my time than I can give her as an adult who's running a business with a husband. My biggest challenge actually at home is balancing. But no, you know what? I'm jumping ahead. We won't. I think you have a question about these challenges. But Jane does want my attention. It's just the quality of the time. The activities that we do together are different. It used to be that we were playing dolls and telling stories and drawing pictures, and I was sitting and listening to her make up her stories, the dolls. And she'd be like, and now your doll does this, and you say this, Mommy. And it was very much fitting into her little agenda for the game, whatever it was, the story she was telling. And now it's more of a conversation too. But she still says that spending time with me is her favourite thing to do. And spending time with her father is her next favourite thing to do. And spending time with all of us together is her favourite thing to do. And this is a teenager who would rather hang out with her mom than I don't know, any number of other things. Mm-hmm. And she gets antsy if we haven't spent time together doing nothing in particular, watching a TV show, or just nothing, or she'll be playing a game. It's actually kind of neat because I have my little writing station in the kitchen, and she has her computers set up on the dining table. She has other things set up in her room, her laptops on the dining table, and I can actually see her. We can see each other, and we can speak through the archway very easily. And whilst that sometimes interrupts me, that's okay. Because sometimes she talks and I don't even hear her because I'm so on the floor. Yeah. Mom, speaking to you. Oh, sorry. But so she's actually a little more patient with me, not hearing her first immediately than she used to be too. now that she's grown up, but she still needs me to hear her. That's the thing. I don't think that, Sandra has that one chart, but how much time do I spend in it? Triangle. The graph doesn't look the same for us. Our graph looks a little differently. She still needs not as much time, but a goodly amount of time on a regular basis. And that's good. I think it's nice. Mm-hmm. She has no plans to.
Yeah, no, that was has been my experience as well. I mean, when they're younger, it's more helping them meet physical needs, right? And helping them get set up for the things they want to do and get things that they're interested in and go places. And as they got older, it wasn't that, we didn't need to help them meet those needs so much, right? They can reach the Legos, they can play the game, they can set it up and everything, but there was still a lot of time for the conversations and the connections and the processing of things, because now there were different kinds of experiences. So much more of it was conversational, really, to help them as they wanted to process and chat about things. And so it wasn't like, they were off just doing all their own things now. Stuff still happened and stuff still came up. So it was other things that they were learning about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's never any sense here that I have to track her down to ask her how her day's being, and or that I'm peripheral to her life and slotting in. I mean, maybe that will come when she's actually moved up, but it may never happen. I don't think she's going to be living in our basement, but we might be living in hers. She's our retirement plan.
Oh, there you go.
It's really
okay.
It's wonderful.
Yes, it's wonderful. I know. It is. Question number 8. I know you and your family attend unschooling conferences pretty regularly, and you mentioned that Jane is now interested in speaking as well, and started taking that class. I was wondering if you could share a bit about your experience and what it is that you guys love about them.
Well, I went ahead and added it up. It's either 14 or 15. I'm not sure whether we've been to 3 or 4 Life is Good, but we went to 6 Live and Learn, 1 Northeast Unschooling, 2 Good Vibration, White Sky Days, 2 Free to Be, and either 3 or 4 Life is Good. And Jane has additionally been to a White Sky Days by herself, without us. She stayed with Erica. It was really cute. So this is how many over the years we've been to. And what I love about it, I think for all of us actually, the experience is in seeing our friends and seeing people we know. And it used to be seeing people I knew online and being able to put faces to them and meeting them in person. And for Jane, it's always been about meeting her friends, meeting new friends, but also connecting with the same friends again. She's really loves seeing people that she only ever sees at conferences, even though they communicate through the years. She sees them in person. And then the other aspect I like about them is that time capsule aspect that I mentioned earlier, that you're seeing the older kids. And it's really, now that Jane's a young adult looking back, every promise was kept. When she was tiny and we saw the ones that were 5 and 6, and then she then became exactly the same as those kids. And we were looking at the tweens, and she became exactly like those tweens. And so each time we went, that little promise of the future that this is what your kid is going to be like, that came true in every respect. So it's been very reassuring. And, I enjoy speaking. I don't shut up once I start, as you've probably noticed. And I also really like hearing the new voices that are coming up, because I participate less on the list now. I do like hearing new people speak.
Oh, okay. Well, we better move on to question 9 now. What has been the most challenging aspect of your journey to unschooling?
Well, the most challenging aspect is that I'm still not very good at balancing the time for my own things in the time that my daughter wants me to spend time with her, my husband wants me to spend time with him, and where am I putting my attention?
Looking back, what has been the most valuable outcome so far from choosing unschooling?
Well, that's a really short answer. Is I have a very happy daughter with no school damage and a close connection to her parents, to James and me. So that's the outcome. It's
that relationship, right?
Yeah, a very happy daughter, and who seems to be completely aware of the world and history and culture and science, and if she wants to find out about something, she knows how to do that. And she's still determining her career kind of path. The problem is not that she doesn't know what to do, but that she has too many choices. She has so many different interests and ideas about her future that she's not yet sure which path is going to appeal to her most. So, yeah.
But that's okay, because that's a nice thing about not having a feeling like you need to stick to a particular timetable, right? I mean, the same, you were talking earlier about her being confident, as however things work out, how they turn out. So being able to know that, oh, geez, I have all these interesting things, and to be able to continue pursuing them all to see what, and then eventually, she'll see what, maybe she'll come up with a way to combine them moving forward. Maybe one will start to stand out, but having that space is awesome.
Yeah, as time goes on, she just has more and more to add rather than down.
Great.
So that's the outcome, and it's really fun to be able to be moving into, for me, the next stage of unschooling as a mom of someone who's grown up, who's done with the homeschooling part of unschooling, in a sense, who's done with the educational. Who's now an adult, a young adult, and be able to say, well, so now I have the expertise of all of these years of my specific thing is unschooling an only child. Here we are. Who was never an easy child. She was sort of easygoing for a minute, but I realized that was not because she was easygoing, but because her needs were easily met. But that's why she appeared easygoing. But who was still very wonderful. And his friends really love her. Her friends love her. She has some great friends who, for a little while there when she was about 7 or 8, she was sort of like, I don't have any friends, nobody likes me, they aren't happy to see me. And it just turned up they just weren't the right friends for her. Her friends, the people that are happy to see her, were living in other cities, kind of. So, yeah, now she has her very dear friends who she just loves.
It's so much about just learning, learning about ourselves, because over time there's just so many different situations, right? And she has both those experiences to start to understand and make the connections between them. It's how we learn through experience. It's just so beautiful.
I've never gotten hung up on trying to worry about what she's learning. I don't care. or I'm not worried. I say it over here, that sounds dismissive. What I mean is I'm not worried. And that's my favorite phrase if someone outside of unschooling has some sort of question, which is really a question being used as camouflage for some kind of critical statement that they want to make. I just say, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. Because I mean it. And I do mean that I'm not worried. You can't argue with somebody who's shrugging their shoulders and saying, I'm not worried. Because I'm not going to get up about their opinion, because they're clueless usually. But, my job is to be an example, not a controller or a warden or anything else. That's my job as an unschooling mom, is to be an example and make sure she has the stuff she needs to continue helping her do what she wants to do. She's going to learn stuff. It's never been, for me, it's never been a question of making sure she learns things. You can't know what they're learning. So I don't care about learning. So I'm kind of not a good unschooler in that respect. That I don't.
Well, I think for me, on my unschooling journey, that was a point reasonably early in my unschooling that I realized I didn't need to look for the learning, and I realized it came down the line in such a way that there was other things upstream which were basically, fun and joy and doing things that are interesting to us. And if I just did those things, the learning would happen on its own. It wasn't something that I needed to worry about, that I needed to try and control or anything like that. What I could do was just support them and be with them and have fun.
But there are a lot of people who are on their way into unschooling that are new, that it helps them to hear things like, it will change your focus and see the learning in this activity or that activity. Or all of these activities that were never bothered me. I didn't care how long she spent playing video games as one of the big examples.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today, Robyn. It was so much fun.
I'm very happy to have done it. I hope you can find some useful nuggets in amongst that lengthy discussion. I appreciate it.
I thought it was awesome. No, really, really. Before we go, though, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Okay, well, I have a Facebook page that's just, I guess, is it Robyn Coburn or is it Iggy Jingles? Anyway, if you search for me, you would find it. My current website is workinproduction.com, which is my business site, but my email address is on that site. And I'm on the Always Learning list, which is Sandra Dodd's main John Holt discussion list. My other website is iggyjingles.com, and it's the Creativity Blast blog. It's in hiatus at the moment, but there's a lot of material on there if anybody's interested in looking at enhancing your creativity, at art and craft and writing and making and different ideas about what creativity means. That's on iggyjingles.com.
That's awesome. I want to thank you very much again for speaking with me, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pam. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes at livingjoyfully.ca/podcast. While you're there, be sure to pick up your free copy of my book, What is Unschooling? In it, we'll explore some of the common questions people have when they first hear about unschooling, like, how will my child learn? How do I know they're learning? What is deschooling? And how do I get started? It's also available at many online ebook retailers. And if you'd like to connect online, you can find me on Facebook at Living Joyfully. Until next time, have fun living and learning with your family.